Hello, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today on Growing Up Latina for my second episode. And today I have a very special guest, Julissa Prados.
Yay, thank
you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So I have a very interesting story on how we actually connected. I was doing an event, my Ali V Day, and I was Googling the top Latina-owned companies, and your name came up. Yes, it was top 15 owned Latina companies, and
Wow.
Rizos Curls came up, which is the product that you see here. And I felt very connected because, as you know, I've been rocking my curls, and I reached out to you, and with no hesitation, you just said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Aww.
So congratulations
Thank
on being one of the top
you.
15. I think that's super just inspiring and actually, an accomplishment because it's really hard to be a Latina and to be one of the top 15 owned. How did you get here is what I want to know. How did you start your company, Rizos Curls?
Yes. So I always like to say that the company started when I first started saving for it, and I first had the idea, and I was really young. I was like a teenager, like 12, 13,
Right.
and wanted to do it, but I started actually saving for it when I was 15, working at my parents' restaurant as a waitress.
Okay.
And I would get my little tips, and half of my tips would go to Rizos. Back then, I always knew the name. I always knew that I wanted it to be called Rizos Curls. And I would save half my tips all the time, and I was like, one day, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna save my tips. So I started saving then, and the actual process, other than saving, to start the business took about 4 years. So in those 4 years, I worked with 2 different labs to come up with the formulas. I, did all the different steps that go with it. Filing for, getting a business license, website, all of that good stuff.
Well, did anybody in your family do this? Did anybody help you? Because usually when you're so business oriented, maybe your dad was business oriented.
Yeah.
Maybe your mom.
Yeah. So I always tell people that I think, so even though I do have a strong business background in the sense of, I was that kid that I went to college and I worked for a big corporate company and all of that stuff. But I tell people my entrepreneurial spirit didn't come from working for Nestle. It didn't come from working for PepsiCo. It didn't come from going to business school. It didn't come from that. My entrepreneurial spirit came from growing up in the hood, growing up in a Latino community where I would get woken up by the elotero, by the man that sells pan randomly through the streets, by, the corn man that sets up his shop and he puts a sign on the back of his truck and does that, from the lady, the next door neighbor lady that turned her front yard into a pupusa stand.
So it's like your surroundings helped you.
So I always tell people, my entrepreneurial spirit came from seeing the communities that I lived in and I grew up in.
Right.
Everyone was an entrepreneur, from the guy selling CDs at the nail shop. If there wasn't a job there, they created it themselves. And I feel like there was a sense of they were very proud of what they did, and they did it in such a humble and proud way, whether it was a $10 startup cost or thousands of dollars startup costs. They did what they could with the tools that they had. So so similarly, my family, my dad, when he came to this country when he was a teenager for his first job.
Where was he before? I'm sorry.
Mexico.
So you're Mexican.
Yeah, so I'm Mexican. On my mom's side, I always tell people I feel like I'm half white and half Caribbean or something. So pretty much all my influences is so my mom's side looks very white, and then my dad's side is Afro-Mexican. So that's where the more coily hair texture comes from with me and my family. And then I have cousins that are half Puerto Rican, half Mexican.
So you have a whole mix.
Yeah, so I have cousins that are half Puerto Rican, and so that's where the Puerto Rican influence comes from, because so my grandparents died when I was very young, and so her Puerto Rican side kind of adopted me to their too, and then they moved to Puerto Rico, so I would go often. So that's kind of where I also had learned to love the culture and everything that comes with it.
Now I have to ask, only because it has been, kind of the forefront on the media and the blogs. What does Afro-Latina, being an Afro-Latina, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I don't know. It's very interesting because I think I don't want to say that I don't necessarily consider myself Afro-Latina, but I think that I also, in saying that, what I say is like, I acknowledge my white privilege in the sense of like being almost white passing compared to many other Afro-Latinas that don't have that privilege of being able to, not be viewed as black for the day, for example. So like, I'm also very careful to give that, assert that and say like, I 100% know that I have a privilege in the fact that even though I do, I have my hair texture is not as coarse, I'm not as dark, so I do have privilege that comes with it by being able to blend with the white world. But I think that in general, I think a lot of the time people, even Latinos, we're very much guilty of this, is that we think of black and Latino as two separate things, two separate categories. It's like, no. You could be black and you could be Latino. Absolutely. It's not two separate. Yeah. It's not two separate check marks. And I think that in general, a lot of the time, there's not a lot of representation of Afro-Latinas within the Latino community itself. And it's a part of us that every Latin American country was influenced in some way by the African slave trade. We have like a lot of our culture, so much of it is, it's a direct translation of the African diaspora that affected all of us. So I think that I especially always say that it's the responsibility of people that are not non-Afro-Latinos to make sure that whatever they do, whether it's a business or whatever, to make sure they have representation of the wide variety of what Latinos look like.
Why do you think it's coming to the forefront now versus before? Because there is racism within our culture.
Yes, 100%. I think, for me, I think that in general, seeing where the political climate is now, where we, I think that it has challenged a lot of us to look at racism more. It almost put a mirror on racism in general, whether it's in the Latino community, where it's in the black, like in the Latino community, African American community, and in that, the Latino community, looking at the racism within ourselves, our own community, there's so much colorism within the Latino community that exists. And I think that we're at a place where, even with our hair, even with our natural hair, I think that rejecting that side of us, rejecting the African roots that the majority of Latinos have, it's not accepting ourselves. So I think that a lot of the time we assimilated or tried to blend into European standards of beauty because of that almost like internalized racism or internalized, racism that we had. And I feel like that's a lot what kept us from allowing ourselves to have our hair natural, to not truly love every part of us. And it was probably subconscious, because a lot of the times I feel like we probably didn't even realize we had that in us. But I think we're in a point right now where I see, especially because of the political climate, you see so many more Latinos especially be very unapologetic and about our culture. And we want to assert like, you know what, I'm gonna love every part of me, and I'm going to no matter, I want everybody to know this is who I am, because if you have something negative to say about my culture, like before you say it, like I'm gonna show you that I'm not ashamed and this is who I am, and better accept me.
What I love about you is you actually put natural hair on the forefront, and you created a company where I feel like just embrace the curls.
Yes.
For a long time when I grew up, I never wanted to show my curls. I always kind of wanted to just blow it out. And I'd be like, Mom, just blow out my hair, please. And she'll do the doobie on me. And it wasn't until, as I started becoming an adult where I started really embracing the curls, and now people love it.
Yes.
And I think that you have that company where you kind of just said, you know what, we do have curly hair, and let's rock it. And let me show you my process.
Yes.
And what I love about your company is that you have a very simple but direct 3-step process. So explain to me a little bit about the process that you have.
So the shampoo is for your scalp. So Scalp Health, a lot of the time when people start having scalp issues, whether it's early hair loss, whether it's dry, itchy scalp, etc., it comes because you're putting either chemicals directly on your scalp that are not good for it, or you're not treating your scalp the way it needs to. So the shampoo focuses on your scalp health. So the moringa oil in particular is what really helps in treating any type of scalp ailment.
Okay.
So that's the shampoo. The next step is the conditioning. So the conditioner focuses on the rest of your hair.
Right.
So making sure to repair and nourish the rest of your head from whatever it is that you're putting it through, whether it's color or whatever else.
So
And
this is color safe.
yes, definitely. So I'm addicted to coloring my hair right now. This is a washed out color from purple. So I was like a deep purple.
I do kind of see the little points.
Yeah, so right now it's kind of like a rose gold, almost being washed out, but it was purple before. So I'm definitely a testament of I use my own product and it was purple. So that's the conditioner. And then the curl cream is what it does the best at is defining, enhancing, and holding your natural texture. And it does it in a way where it provides the moisture, but it also holds it. And the aloe vera is what is used for the extra little hold. But it does it with a very light cast so that your hair is still touchable and it's not crunchy.
I will say that it's not crunchy, which I love, because my issue that I was telling you before behind the scenes is that I actually will mousse up my hair and spray it, but it'll become like this nasty,
crunchy,
soft.
Yeah.
Not so hard that I just don't like, but using your products, it's still soft, but it holds.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's
exactly.
It's not like frizzy where I'm like,
yeah.
oh my God, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I really, really love your product.
Yeah.
Now, do you diffuse your curls?
I do. I love diffusing. For me, for my texture, usually the threes love the diffusing because it will even more, it will enhance your curls even more.
Okay.
And that's the same for me. I love the volume too, and it gives me good volume when I diffuse.
And now you were telling me this is like kind of like a family thing. You incorporate your family into your business. So explain to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So so in the Latino culture, I always tell people that with my product and with everything that I do, I want to bring who I am with it. So with Rizos, I say like the trifecta. So my trifecta of what I feel like embodies the company is product. Obviously, I have a product, community. So whatever community it is where I am. So whether it's the LA or New York, like I want to bring that spirit of that local community. And then the last one is culture. So obviously my Latino culture is something that's very important to me. So with culture and community comes my family. It's like they are a huge part of it. So my drawing on the bottle, these are the travel size, but on the bigger one it's easier to see. But the drawing, my cousin Vanessa drew it with a pen, and we scanned it onto a computer and traced it on there. But so that is my cousin. My storage is my parents' house. My fulfillment is my Tío Juan's house. My CFO is my brother. You know, social media is whatever cousin's available.
Yeah.
My every
whatever
cousin is available. My models, my models are my friends or my cousins. So it's definitely all hands on deck with my family.
And talk to me about just a little bit about like how you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in LA. So I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and I grew up around my family. So pretty much on one street, we all back in the day. We all grew up in like one apartment building, and every unit was a family member. So we were very used to walking everywhere together, doing everything together. Yeah, sharing.
Unity.
Yeah, and even till this day, most of my family all live like on the same street or walking distance from each other, and we're very close. So that's kind of the environment I grew up in, and always in very I grew up in very Latino neighborhoods, and like I was mentioning before. That's where my entrepreneurial spirit came from, was from that. So yeah,
I love that. Now I was telling you a little bit behind the scenes that growing up for me as a Latina, I was born in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
So I knew Spanish perfectly.
Yeah.
And then somehow my Spanish got lost.
Yeah.
Once I started going to school and having friends that didn't speak Spanish. So now I'm at a place where I understand Spanish perfectly, but then when I speak it, it's kind of like a little funky. It's like Spanglish, so I call that like being the modern day Latina, where your parents speak to you in Spanish, because my dad is Dominican, so my dad only speaks Spanish. But with my dad, I will speak Spanish, and somehow we understand each other. But with my mom, she speaks to me in Spanish, but I answer back in English. So I call that like the modern day Latina.
Yeah.
You, how did you grow up? Did you have that issue, or was it just me?
So I grew up speaking all Spanish. My mom till this day doesn't speak English.
Okay.
And even in school, back in LA, they had these classes where pretty much you were all in Spanish, like, and later I was in ESL, and then eventually in all English speaking classes. But like, I wasn't even learning English at school, and I feel like as Latinos, we create these communities where we don't need English. No. So like growing up in primarily Latino neighborhoods, I didn't really need it until I got a little bit older and learned it in school. But Spanish is my first language, and like similarly to you, my language of choice, I say, is Spanglish, because sometimes I think mostly in English, but sometimes those words in Spanish, there's no other word to describe it. So I wanted the name of my company to also be representative of the modern day Latina that sometimes speaks in Spanglish and has these two cultures and these two languages that are both very much part of who they are.
And I have to ask you, what do you consider, or not what do you consider, but what's the best thing about being Latina?
Oh my God.
And what does being a Latina mean to you?
Yes. Oh, that's a good question. I would say the best thing that I like about being Latina is our rich culture, and in that culture that comes with it is the family, the hustle, the spirit of. I think one thing that I find in common, no matter what Latin American country I go to, is this spirit of community that we create. This spirit of, no matter what life throws at us, no matter what difficult times we're going through, we have something good to look forward to, and we have this very uplifting spirit of happiness, of dancing, of joy.
Which you always love to dance, by the way, girl. I saw that on your Instagram.
I know, it's so bad. No matter where I am. I do. Yes. So I think that's what I love most about being Latina is like if you go to any family party, it doesn't matter what country they are from, you will see everyone participates in dancing. Yes. It's like from the abuelita, language. Exactly, from the abuelita to the mom to the babies, like everyone is dancing, and it's just part of. Even if when you don't dance, it's something very normal that you grew up around. Right. This very very animated, very. But
there is something very organic about
very
that.
Organic music, culture. I feel like music, food, dancing. It's almost like we set the trends for so much, and it's just so organic to us, and it comes from the streets that we grew up in, the fashions, like how we get creative. One of the most beautiful things that I was laughing at recently with a friend was with Latinos, I feel like we're very we take pride in our appearance, in the sense of like, for example, it doesn't matter what hood you live in. It doesn't matter how you could be making $6 an hour for your bautismo or for your quinceañera. Best believe you have a 14-karat gold low bracelet. You have this necklace is my brother's baptism necklace.
We have all that. The ring.
Yes, you save up and you're very proud, and you keep these things forever because it's part of our culture and what we take pride in. So
one last question before we wrap up. What is one thing that you would like your fans to know?
I think one thing that I would love everybody to know is starting your own business and following your passion is something that you don't need to have a lot to do. You can have zero marketing dollars and make something out of nothing. I think that our community is very accustomed to fake it till we make it, in the sense of not having a lot, but using our resources and putting in that extra work with making up for the lack of maybe financial resources with our spirit, with our hard work, with our creativity. So the biggest thing that I would want them to take away is, you know, I'm just a regular girl from LA that just kind of figured it out, and so you can too. Like, we have so many resources at our fingertips, and I would love my story to inspire other Latinas or Latinos and whoever else to follow their passion, and yeah.
Thanks, Julissa. Thank you so much for coming on to Growing Up Latina. Thank you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe.